Masked men forcing their way into a home near Mississauga Road in the 403. Family who say they are now living in fear.
This might throw a monkey wrench into Mark Carney's plans. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today, we've got Donald Trump canceling all trade negotiations when Carney was so close to getting a deal with Donald Trump because of Doug Ford and Doug Ford's actions. He thought he was being cheeky. He thought he was being funny. Turns out Doug Ford was being an idiot. Let's jump into this. What we're talking about here today is this Ontario's ad that Doug Ford launched, $75 million of ad campaign that he's spending in America to try to convince Americans that tariffs are bad.
And we're going to ramp up the ads. We spent tens of millions of dollars, but now the ads are going to be a little different.
What they did is found this speech of Ronald Reagan. He speaks here for 5 minutes and 10 seconds. Doug Ford's team took this, cut it down selectively down to 1 minute, made Ronald Reagan sound like he's an absolutist in the fact that he hates all tariffs. They put all this nice, good, wholesome footage on here, pushed it out, and this pissed off Donald Trump.
I don't want to do this. We didn't start this fight, and neither did the Americans. The president started this fight.
So if I'm hearing you, you're saying you're going to run attack ads, basically, against what he's doing in the States?
Well, I wouldn't call them attack ads. I'm going to call them information ads.
Okay.
And they're going to inform the great people of the United States, how it could be, and having two great nations, and how it might be if these tariffs continue to go through.
So that's where we are here today. Donald Trump just tweeted this out 2 hours ago in the time of filming this. The Ronald Reagan Foundation has just announced that Canada has fraudulently used an advertisement, which is fake, featuring Ronald Reagan speaking negatively about tariffs. The ad was for $75 million. They only did this to interfere with the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court and other courts. Tariffs are very important to the national security, the economy of the United States. Based on their egregious behavior, all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated. Thank you for attention on this matter, President Donald J. Trump. The Ronald Reagan Foundation put this out. Basically what I just said, the Ontario, Canada created an ad campaign using selective audio and video of President Ronald Reagan delivering his radio address to the nation on free and fair trade. This ad misrepresents the presidential radio address, and the government of Ontario did not seek nor receive permission to use and edit the remarks. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute is reviewing its legal options in this matter. We encourage you to watch President Reagan's unedited video on our YouTube channel. Well, that's what we're going to look at here. So first, let's look at the ad itself. This is what Doug Ford and his team released to America.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time.
So I should note too, there's nice music in here, but I have to remove the music because of copyright. But this is where the ad starts. It just starts about him talking about tariffs. But in reality, that section is about 2.5 minutes in. This video starts with him talking about Japan.
My fellow Americans, Prime Minister Nakasone of Japan will be visiting me here at the White House next week. It's an important visit because while I expect to take up our relations with our good friend Japan, which overall remain excellent, recent disagreements between our two countries on the issue of trade will also be high on our agenda. As perhaps you've heard, last week I placed new duties on some Japanese products in response to Japan's inability to enforce their trade agreement with us on electronic devices called semiconductors.
So basically this speech here, he's in favor of tariffs only very selectively, though, to push back against countries that are not trading fairly. That's basically the takeaway from his video here.
Now, imposing such tariffs or trade barriers and restrictions of any kind are steps that I am loath to take. And in a moment, I'll mention the sound economic reasons for this. That over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. But the Japanese semiconductors were a special case. We had clear evidence that Japanese companies were engaging in unfair trade practices that violated an agreement between Japan and the United States. We expect our trading partners to live up to their agreements. As I've often said, our commitment to free trade is also a commitment to fair trade.
So Ronald Reagan, it's very clear, he wasn't big on tariffs, but he would use them if he had to. So where does this put this? It's definitely not in Donald Trump's court here, where Donald Trump loves tariffs on everything, but Doug Ford and his team here definitely misrepresented Ronald Reagan and his stance, because if you watch this, it makes it seem like Ronald Reagan is an absolutist. He would never use tariffs. Tariffs are the worst thing ever.
But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs.
So if you don't have any of the context about him talking about semiconductors in Japan, it makes it a completely different video. So Donald Trump is right to point out that Doug Ford and his team are misrepresenting Ronald Reagan, although I don't think Reagan would be too happy with how many tariffs Trump is putting on the rest of the world, including Canada.
But you know, in imposing these tariffs, we were just trying to deal with a particular problem, not begin a trade war. So next week, I'll be giving Prime Minister Nakasone this same message. We want to continue to work cooperatively on trade problems and want very much to lift these trade restrictions as soon as evidence permits. We want to do this because we feel both Japan and the United States have an obligation to promote the prosperity and economic development that only free trade can bring.
So this is basically getting towards the end of this section that Doug Ford's team cut out. Ford's ad starts somewhere around here. And we got this clip here of Donald Trump. This actually came out, I believe, 2 days ago. I didn't put it on the channel, but Trump was pissed about this 2 days ago. And I guess the Ronald Reagan Foundation bringing this up and showing that they chopped up the ad enough to push Trump over the edge.
We're the most successful. We're believers in tariffs. And I even see foreign countries now that we are doing very well with taking ads. Don't go with tariffs. They're taking ads. I saw an ad last night from Canada. If I was Canada, I'd take that same ad also. They're actually on television taking ads, but I do believe that everybody's too smart for that. We have a very, very big and important case coming up. We should win the case based on the legal merit. We should also win the case.
So it cuts off there, but as Donald Trump mentioned in his original tweet here, they only did this to interfere with the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court and other courts. So he doesn't like how this monkeys up stuff in his world, and now he's taking revenge against Canada. Thanks, Doug Ford. Meanwhile, what's Mark Carney up to? He's having an important meeting with the Blue Jays. It's one disastrous leader after another in Canada, whether it's Doug Ford or Mark Carney. This guy spends more time at sporting events than he does governing the country. Here he is at his Darlington nuclear announcement, continually referencing the Blue Jays.
100 jobs, they'll extend over the next 65 years. A couple of more World Series trips for the Jays.
Because I'm not paying whatever $1,500 for a ticket. And by the way, those ticket gougers, they're going to pay the price. We're going to get to them. I'm going to sit out in the man cave and watch the game.
Now, that message of free trade is one I conveyed to Canada's leaders a few weeks ago, and it was warmly received there. Indeed, throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. Now, there are sound historical reasons for this. For those of us who lived through the Great Depression, the memory of the suffering it caused is deep and searing. And today, many economic analysts and historians argue that high tariff legislation passed back in that period, called the Smoot-Hawley tariff, greatly deepened the Depression and prevented economic recovery.
It's quite clear Ronald Reagan's all for free trade. He will use tariffs sparingly. Meanwhile, we've got Doug Ford, who's been running his mouth for months.
It'd be lights out in part of the U.S. Listen to what Doug Ford says.
I will do everything, including cut off their energy, with a smile on my face. You think the people of Ontario are that dumb?
Premier of Canada's most populous territory, Ontario. And
it's one disaster after the other with Doug Ford.
You see, at first, when someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. What eventually occurs is, first, homegrown industries start relying on government protection in the form of high tariffs. They stop competing and stop making the innovative management and technological changes they need to succeed in world markets.
This whole situation sits in a gray area in the middle. Reagan wouldn't be a fan of what's going on here, but Trump's right to point out that Doug Ford and his team are a bunch of scoundrels for cutting up this ad and not representing Reagan in proper light. The key question with all of this now is, how does this affect Mark Carney? It seems he was queuing up a deal to happen at the end of the month here. Then he puts out his budget November 4th. There's a lot of stir. There's a lot of stuff in the media, and people hear a huge deficit, but then they hear Carney get a deal. Maybe that makes things seem better to the average person. I don't know.
You know what? I think he's afraid. I think he's afraid to make a bet. He doesn't like to lose. He hasn't called. He hasn't returned my call yet on the bet, so I'm ready. we're ready to make a bet with the U.S. And we're going to be back in the Jays at some point.
This is embarrassing. He wants to make a bet with Donald Trump over the World Series. This is what this guy's spending his time doing. I'm not sure if that's what they were planning here, or maybe they're trying to stack the deck here and then go to an election and get a majority. But if Carney doesn't get this deal, that throws everything off. So I can only imagine right now Carney's team is panicking as we speak here. This is cascading across headlines across Canada and America. Trump says he's terminating trade negotiations with Canada over Ontario anti-tariff ad. Breaking U.S. president says he's terminating all trade talks. It is going everywhere. Wonder how Doug's feeling right now. Meanwhile, we've got Mark Carney pretending he likes Jewish people in Canada.
The Jewish community stood together and stood with other Canadians in their darkest moments. And I want to be clear, Canada stands with you. Canada will always stand with you.
And here he is just a couple days ago on Bloomberg Weekend.
So for the end goal, the actual establishment of a Palestinian state living side by side with a secure Israel, to get that, you're going to have to keep up the pressure on the Israeli government. Justin Trudeau said that Canada would honor the International Criminal Court arrest warrants, i.e. Benjamin Netanyahu would be arrested if he came to Canada. Does that stand under your leadership?
Yes.
You'd be prepared to do that?
Yes.
It gets extra interesting here considering we've got this one. Anita Nan says Canada is in a strategic partnership with China. Just 3 years after Canada called China a disruptive global power, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Nan says Canada now views Beijing as a strategic partner in a dangerous world. Sounds like Mark Carney's language. Nan told the Canadian press on Monday that a strategic partnership with China means going beyond allowing individual irritants to strain the entire relationship and permitting Canada to advance its economic and security interests. Basically, they're opening this up for bilateral trade with China now. Canada's bilateral merchandise trade with China totaled $118 billion last year. This makes China Canada's second largest trading partner after the United States, which recorded $924 billion in bilateral merchandise trade. So it's clear who we need to get a deal with. Unfortunately, Doug Ford is now screwing everyone over, including Mark Carney. So I wonder how this is sitting right now in Carney HQ. Moving ahead, we've got Canada has renewed funding for black business owners with $189 million over the next 5 years because skin color matters in Canada if you get support or not. We also got Roman Baber posting this one. In question period, Mark Carney cited independent research by the Canadian Climate Institute, which found the net impact of the industrial carbon tax on food prices to be 0%. Well, we got Roman Baber digging this up. He says the Canadian Climate Institute got over $30 million in Liberal government grants. Yep, there it is. Grants, $30 million. Of course they did. Another $500,000. When you're getting $30 million, they're going to produce the numbers Carney wants to see. I found a couple more of these liberal attack ads. Conservative MPs doubt Pierre Poilievre's leadership. Look at this ridiculous statement here. These comments prove that Pierre Poilievre will never be prime minister. A conservative caucus member. Come on. You can't just put some generic thing like that. Name a person or it didn't happen. Does he look like a prime minister in waiting? No. A conservative MP. This just in, we're getting a statement from a liberal MP saying that Mark Carney is a complete jerk. Okay, we're going to run that as a story now. Mark Carney's a complete jerk coming from a liberal MP. This should be against the law. Either you cite a source with a source or it didn't happen. And they have sources at the bottom here, which is almost impossible to read, but they're citing Radio Canada, which was this whole slanderous story, which didn't cite a source. And we got this one. Pierre Poilievre charges ahead recklessly, echoing the playback of Mr. Trump, who literally made rally chants of his desire to imprison Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. This is ridiculous, guys. Pierre Poilievre wants people charged who committed illegal activities. Justin Trudeau was never investigated, even though he broke ethics laws. He should be investigated. Meanwhile, in Mississauga, we've got street racers completely blocking the road to have drag races. Yeah, so they blocked off everything so nobody can get through now so they can have a drag race, which you can see right here. This stupidity must end. These people should be put in jail for like 5 years for doing this. What if there's an ambulance behind there and somebody died in there? If that was my family member, I would find out who these people are and I would make them pay. And to round out this episode, nothing like a good old-fashioned home invasion. We've got a family here who waited 12 hours for the police to arrive.
It was mid-afternoon when the notification from the doorbell camera went off.
What it showed was masked men forcing their way into a home near Mississauga Road in the 403. What it didn't show is a family who say they are now living in fear. CTV's Alison Hurst spoke with the family this afternoon and joins us now live with the latest. Allison.
Zoraida, Peel police say that officers are still canvassing the area, still looking for security footage and trying to piece together where those suspects came from and where they went when they left. A blue SUV pulls into the driveway and a person in plaid with a blue medical mask knocks on the door several times before leaving. Minutes later, what looks like the same car returns and two people get out, one wearing the same shirt but with a hood and a different face covering. They break in the door. Shortly after, a third person joins and the car drives away.
That's when they disconnected the Wi-Fi, so we don't have any recording beyond that.
Rajendra Prasad was at work and rushed home when he saw what was happening on his security camera around 2:50 yesterday afternoon. He entered his home with a neighbor when he was sure no one was inside.
Everything is on the floor everywhere. Every single room, every single washroom, even the drawers and cabinets, even in the washrooms, they are all open. In the rooms, every drawer has been opened and thrown upside down on the floor.
His daughter, Sugand Gupta, was out and his wife had left the house just before the break-in. The only one home was the family dog, Mitzi.
My bed cover was covered. There was blood marks, there was urine, there was very clearly something had happened to her.
Gupta took Mitzi to the vet.
I'm still really afraid for her. We still have to keep a watch if she was drugged. And she's not herself. Yeah. And she's my child. She's everything to me.
Despite being called around 3:15 yesterday afternoon, Peel police did not arrive until just after 8 a.m. this morning.
When I read the call initially, I wasn't very happy with what I read either in terms of the delay that went by.
We need to find these people, hunt them down, punish them.
Peel police say it's uncommon for a call like this to wait so long, but yesterday there were several calls happening at the time, and 2 are still on the go.
It's what we need to do is have your own pew-pew, and these guys come in, you just blast them into oblivion.
Violating, and no one should have to wait. Unfortunately, in this case, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, there's no one present anymore, and the danger has since ceased. So in that—
Yeah, but the dog was injured. These people need to be found, and they need to be absolutely obliterated.
In that case, we can put this call off to the side so we can prioritize things that are happening now.
You see there are marks here.
Visible.
They're putting this one off to the side because there's too many home invasions. Send these guys over to Carney's neighborhood.
Scratch marks can be seen on the family's front door, and Prasad says he had to secure it overnight so they could sleep. He says the suspects not only disabled the Wi-Fi,
They pulled down all of this,
but also ripped the PVR box out of the wall that held the security camera recordings. The family just wants to feel safe again.
We need to have safer cities. The fact that the police weren't able to come because so much crime was happening and so many other people were in distress that it took them this long to arrive, that's scary.
Police say they're looking for at least 4 suspects.
Prasad tells us that about a week before this break-in happened, he saw someone standing outside his home flying a drone over his property. So he called police to report it. We asked Peel police about that, and they don't believe the 2 incidents are connected. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst.
I mean, the drone flying over their property doesn't really give them all that much intel. The drone can't stay up there for more than about half an hour or 35 minutes. It's not like they're scoping out when they leave for work. I doubt that has anything to do with it. Comes down to it, there's too many monsters in this country. We have to have extreme punishment. Canada is a crap hole. Where are taxes going? Why is it that we have to fund all the criminals coming into Canada? The danger has ceased. No, it hasn't. These are the people we are depending on to keep us safe. I respect the police, but sorry, do better. I mean, they're probably overloaded. There's just too many cases. They can't handle this. Look what the Liberals have done to our country.